You know, there's this sort of famous story about Chris Christopherson showing up at, I think it was the Earl of Old Town, was that the name of the club? Yeah. And I think we were there because we were playing in Chicago, and we ran into Chris somewhere, and he said, "Man, you got to come hear this guy, John Prine." These two guys, John Prine and Steve Goodman. And I remember going in this room, and you know, all the chairs were up on the tables because they were done for the night, and they both got up there and sang some tunes, and it was amazing. It was great. And I could have just put myself in a story that I read, but I'm pretty sure we were there, and we got to know them really well, and toured a lot over the years with John and Steve as well. Well, at first it might have been big clubs, you know, like there was this whole sort of series of sort of in the Fillmore, you know, vein. There was the Agora in Cleveland, and I can't remember where we played in Chicago, but there were a lot of little old creaky theaters and smaller, bigger ballroom type clubs. The Cowtown Ballroom in Kansas City is an example, although I'm not sure Prine played that. I think he did. The categories, the genre thing didn't really exist back then. Yeah. You know, we were all kind of in the folk realm, and we all loved country music and blues, so all that kind of converged. But loved John from the jump just because of his sense of humor, you know, and he wrote these amazing songs that, you know, he could have you laughing and crying inside of 3 minutes, which I loved. And his storytelling between tunes was remarkable, and he was a great guy to hang with. And Steve Goodman as well. We loved Steve a lot. And those guys were like the Bobbsey twins. They were inseparable. And we got to play with both of them. Oh man, a lot during this certain period of time, mostly in the 70s, I think, and a little bit into the 80s. John had already moved down here by then, I think, to Nashville. But I always thought of him as a Chicago guy. After Steve Goodman passed away, we all there was a couple of tribute shows. One was out in California in Santa Barbara, I believe it was, and that we did one at Red Rocks, and we did one in Chicago as well, which became a live album, which was really, really sweet. Getting to hang out with our pals. Bonnie was there, and of course Prine. It was a really good night. But yeah, man, they were great cats.
Do you remember when you first heard that first album, the Johns?
Yeah. I heard him before the record came out, but you know, I believe that's got Sam Stone and Hello in there on it. You know, those were the two like wow, major pieces right there. If you never did anything else,
like Paradise, that's one of the great environmental tunes ever written.
Yeah,
and it's so great at that we don't think of it as that.
No, you know, the coal company came with the world's largest shovel. You know, torture to the timber. It's just like, and he just does it in that matter-of-fact kind of way. He's still talking about empty pop bottles and all that we killed, you know.
When do you remember first seeing John in Nashville?
He had moved here already, and we were down here. I moved here in 1985, and I would just randomly run into him. There was I lived in Hillsborough Village for quite a while. What we used to say was crawling distance from Brown's Diner. I think that might have been a Prine line actually, but you know, he and Nancy Griffith and Pat McLaughlin all hung out in that. You know, they had stools with their names on them, I think, little plaques. But that was a great hang. And it still is. I love that. I love that it's still there. But you know, we'd see each other in these odd things, and we'd be like two cars in a parking lot coming at each other like this, and we'd stop, and down would come the window in the Cadillac, whichever caddy it was. Hey, what's going on? And it'd be like yada yada. You know, and we were all usually ships passing in the night. You know, had just gotten off the tour bus, and got to get together. Let's get some food. You know, we'll have the ladies figure it out, and they always did. It was great. You know, Fiona and Matrace. He's just great, man. And he was, or I'd see him at Arnold's or something like that. You know, working on the Meatloaf Day, and whatever place was the sort of Cajun place of the moment, because there were several different. Bros was one for a while, I remember. He loved that too, but he really loved like meat and potatoes. You know, he's that kind of cat.
Okay, I started doing this here during lockdown. I'd say something about John Prine, and the nicest people in the world showed up in the comments. Like I say this whenever somebody talks about John Prine on the show. I'll publish this, and there won't be a single asshole show up. Wow. Which I have this theory that there's not a single asshole in the world that, you know, none of John Prine's fans are assholes. And
I agree with that 100%.
It seems to be when people talk about him, there's a basic decency and humanness to him that you don't get from most folks.
Yep. I think that he was kind enough. Around 10 years ago, we did a 50th anniversary celebration for our band at the Ryman. And we called it Circling Back. And John and Jerry Jeff were both there. You know, it was a really special night in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of our buddies, you know, Sam Bush and Jerry Douglas and Allison Krauss and Vince Gill, Jackson Brown. And it was just a beautiful night. But Prine, you know, nothing fazed him, and he was just so cool, and he could bring the temperature down in the best way if there was any kind of stressing, because they filmed it, and it was like filming. Oh no! But what a sweet cat, you know. We did Grandpa Was a Carpenter, which we recorded with him on the second Will the Circle Be Unbroken volume, and I said, could we do Paradise? And he went, yeah, of course. You know, he said, you're going to sing the verse about the coal company came with the world's largest show, you know. God, man, I loved it. I remember I muffed the words on one line. I kind of made up my own line for something. Oh, instead of they wrote it all down as the progress of man, I said, and they chalked it all up as the progress of man. And I called him a few days later and I said, do I need to go in and fix that? And he went, no, man, it's just the folk process. Now it's a new version. I loved him so much. One other thing about his fans. So, at the end of 2019, John and Fiona had been working on this festival for years called the All the Best Fest, and it was down in the Dominican Republic. It was basically like going on a music cruise without the boat. Beautiful, this destination resort kind of thing. So they were all John Prine fans, and it was what a fantastic week just to be there. But getting to play was even better. But you know, we had Prine and we had Emmy Lou and Brandy Carlisle and Lucinda Williams and Steve Earle and Todd Snyder. Tyler Childers. I mean, I'd start thinking about the lineup, and it was like crazy, great. But the thing that really struck me is people, you know, you'd be walking around this thing all the time, and you go get a drink, or it's all kind of very tropical, you know, a lot of umbrella drinks and Corona beers. But people would just stop you, and man, they would just say the nicest things. And they kind of went, well, if you're a friend of John's, we gotta love you. And it was like, oh man, nice basking in that, the reflection of Johnny, you know?
That says a lot about him to be able to attract folks like that, I think.
Oh, unbelievable. I mean, we kind of went, and I love our fans. We call them the Dirt Heads. And they're terrific folks. And quite a few of them were down there for that festival. But I still hear from people, you know, comments online. They're like, we were at the All the Best Fest, and it was so great. And, you know, and then that was that. We got back here after Thanksgiving, and we had a dinner. Dave Cobb and his wife, beautiful people, hosted a dinner with John and Fiona, and Tommy was there with his future wife, Savannah, and Matrace and I. And, man, we burnt, we burnt the midnight oil that night, and John was like, "You never had a proper handsome Johnny," till I made it. The secret is diet ginger ale, and I had a couple of those, and it was fantastic. But we lost him a couple months later. We had a few conversations about football after that. But man, his influence, what I love is, and you never get over that kind of loss, especially for Fiona and the boys and the family. But his memories are so great, and I'm always smiling thinking about just what a cool cat he was. That night after dinner, he told us that story, which is kind of in the legend of Pantheon about him and Steve Goodman writing "You Never Even Call Me by My Name," and they were writing it. They were in a hotel room. This is a story. They were writing the lyrics up on the wall of this hotel. One of them would leave, and the other one would go and fill in this part of the verse. And John just thought it was a hoot, And the story is he didn't want any credit for the tune, and Steve ended up buying him that jukebox, that beautiful, crazy jukebox. But yeah, those cats, man, they were special, really special.